Hey everybody, this is Danelle here at Networkchain. We're going to get into some of the bigger news stories over the past week, but of course, let's go ahead and just jump right into the cryptocurrency market update. You can see Bitcoin is currently trading at $118,587. It's up about 4% over the past 7 days. One of the larger news stories over the past week, and really over the last several weeks, is Ethereum as it's continuing to make a move. It has now broken that $4,000 mark, and it was around $4,200, and it's come down a little bit, but you can see that it's up 20% over the past week. XRP is up nearly 11%. Solana also up 11%, Dogecoin up over 17%, Tron up over 5%, and Cardano rounding out the top 10, currently trading above 10% at just under 80 cents. So if we look at Ethereum, one of the bigger stories when it comes to Ethereum and whether or not it will continue to make a move, a lot of speculators look at the Ethereum over Bitcoin chart. So as you can see, basically over the last 4 years or so, Ethereum had a top of about 0.08. So basically that's one Ethereum would get you about 0.08 Bitcoin. And since December of 2021, it has been on a steady decline, particularly once we hit 2022, towards the end of 2022, it has been a precipitous decline. And we actually looks like we bottomed out a few months ago at about 0.017 or so, and now we're seeing this move up. Now obviously, as we know, just generally when it comes to cryptocurrencies, you're going to see some volatility. So the same thing when you're doing pairs. So we're talking about the Ethereum Bitcoin pair, but people tend to believe that as you see Ethereum beginning to outperform Bitcoin, meaning that it's moving at a faster rate than Bitcoin, then that's when so-called altcoin season will begin. Obviously, that remains to be seen. This cycle potentially could be a lot different, especially considering now that we're having a lot of institutions that are coming into the forefront, particularly when it comes to Ethereum, not just Bitcoin. We know about the companies, the publicly traded companies that have started Bitcoin treasury companies, but now we're seeing with Bitmine, as well as SharpLink, the two largest Ethereum holders and Ethereum treasury companies. And now there's a line of Ethereum treasury companies that are coming up behind them. But we're seeing that now that corporate interest, not only from the Ethereum ETFs that were launched last year as well, we're now seeing companies that are trying to race to get as many Ethereum on the balance sheet. Now, Ethereum currently is the largest smart contract platform by market cap. You can see it's about $500 billion currently. Many believe that there's a possibility, a lot of the Ethereum so-called maximalists believe that one day, and there's this word called the flippening, that one day Ethereum could flip Bitcoin. Obviously, that remains to be seen. We currently see Bitcoin currently trading at $2.3 trillion. It's actually just at 1/10 of gold, which is currently trading at $23 trillion. So Ethereum obviously has a long way to go, but is that a possibility? We do not know, but we do know that there's a lot of activity that's on Ethereum, and one of the reasons is because of the stable coin market. When you look at Tether and USDC, which you see here in the top 10, those are the stable coins that are based on Ethereum. Solana, which is currently at $100 billion market cap, they also have a lot of activity. A lot of people look at them as a competitor to Ethereum, but a lot of people enjoy being on Solana as opposed to Ethereum because it's a lot faster and the transaction fees are a lot cheaper. Now, obviously, over time, we shall see what institutions and what the world decides with regards to which blockchain and which smart contract platform they're going to choose. But right now, there's still more going on Ethereum as opposed to Solana. So we are seeing these Ethereum treasury companies that are trying to stack as much Ethereum as possible. Now, if we go here to go a little bit further when it comes to Ethereum and what is potentially happening when it comes to these smart contract platforms, is that there is a race among several larger entities that are looking to tokenize stocks. Now, Larry Fink, who's the head of BlackRock, which is the largest asset manager in the world, said last year when the Bitcoin ETFs were launching that at some point real world assets, when it comes to your house, when it comes to your car, when it comes to basically anything physical, they could be represented by tokens. They could be tokenized. And being tokenized means that it would be represented on the blockchain. And so a lot of these trading platforms currently, when it comes to Coinbase, as well as Kraken and Robinhood, they are now growing the tokenization ecosystem. So Robinhood, at least right now, it's not in the United States, but in Europe, you can have a tokenized version of an equity of a stock. So you can trade these tokens, which basically represents a share of a stock, or a partial share of a stock. And when that token or stock is sold, that token is then burned, and that money, fiat currency, is then transferred over to the holder of those so-called tokens. So tokenization, one of the reasons why it also could potentially be very big is because of the fact that it is on the blockchain. Blockchain does provide a level of security that's different from the centralized points of authority. When you think of several banks that have gone bankrupt, have gone defunct, you remove that third party risk factor. And also you have the speed, which is incredibly important, especially when it comes to moving large amounts of money from all over the world. That's why blockchain and why Bitcoin has become so attractive to many investors, as well as those who are interested in getting involved in using the ecosystem, is that you have the ability to transfer funds using the blockchain, and having that security layer from the blockchain technology, whether it's Bitcoin, whether it's Ethereum, whether it's Solana. So you can see here that the Coinbase CEO, who unveiled the crypto exchanges tokenization ambitions just recently at their earnings report, said that just 3% in equities trading market share would double the current crypto market. So he's basically saying, if we get tokenization of just securities when it comes to the total market of stocks, and if they get just 3% of that trading market share, that it would double the current entire cryptocurrency market, which currently is around somewhere between 3 and 4 trillion right now. So obviously we're still in the early stages. A lot of people think that, oh, we're late to Bitcoin, we're late to blockchain technology. We're absolutely not late. We're actually at the very beginning, because we're seeing the ecosystem starting to be developed, and is currently under construction. So you can see here also Robinhood, which is a large brokerage and trading platform, said that the opportunity in tokenization is inaccessible for private market assets, for example. So a lot of people are interested in companies like SpaceX or an OpenAI. Those are private companies, Anduril. And so there are other entities that do have access to these private companies. And so if you want to invest in them, Robinhood would be able to tokenize those shares that other firms own, and be able to have people have access to those tokens and to those private market assets. So there's just a large market that is available just coming on top of smart contract platforms. There's obviously more of a market when it comes to just Bitcoin or other currencies. So we're seeing that this is all being built out. Obviously, throughout time, we'll continue to keep you posted as the ecosystem continues to grow. But we're just seeing that the total addressable market, known as TAM, is ridiculous when it comes to the hundreds of trillions of dollars that is out there, when it comes to the equity market, when it comes to the fixed income market, when it comes to real world assets, when we talk about real estate, for example. So there's a way for blockchain technology and for Bitcoin to really disrupt all of these different types of assets. We also got news this past week that an executive order has been signed in the United States that now 401k plans can include alternative assets, which also include cryptocurrencies. So you could get a individual retirement account, which is known as an IRA, and you can see here on Fidelity, which is one of the largest asset managers in the world. They also have their own Ethereum ETF as well as a Bitcoin ETF. You could invest directly with crypto in these individual retirement accounts, but now in your 401ks, which are employee sponsored retirement accounts, you also will be able to have access to cryptocurrency as well. So this is huge in terms of the 401k market is around, at least as of Q1 of 2025, is over $8 trillion. It's probably higher than that now at this point. But we're seeing that even if at some point some of these portfolios decide to put 0.5% or 1% of Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies into these accounts, then that continues to grow the cryptocurrency market and the cryptocurrency market cap. So we're seeing that institutional interest continues into Bitcoin. We can see that Harvard University, so it's not just these larger hedge funds or publicly traded companies, but we're seeing schools that are also interested in Bitcoin. Harvard, Brown, there's a ton of schools, University of Texas, that have already invested in Bitcoin via the ETFs. And you can see that Harvard reveals that they have $116 million investment in the BlackRock ETF, and there's BlackRock CEO Larry Fink, as I mentioned earlier. So you can see from the regulatory filings that Harvard and Brown, for example, have Bitcoin exposure, and they're two of the most well-known college/universities in the United States. So the race continues when it comes to the Bitcoin treasury companies. I also mentioned the Ethereum treasury companies. Strategy has over 628,000. We're seeing more and more entities are being added to the list, and we know that Strategy is chasing Satoshi Nakamoto. Now they're calling it a Nakamoto, which is basically nearly a million Bitcoin holdings. You can see actually the current value of the holdings is over $100 billion, and those Bitcoin have not been moved, and there are trackers. And that's one great thing about Bitcoin and it being a public ledger, is that you'll be able to see the wallet and whether or not any Bitcoins ever are moved from that wallet. And it hasn't moved since those nearly a million Bitcoin has been mined. And so whether Satoshi Nakamoto is a group or one individual person, the value of those holdings is currently over $100 billion. And we know that Strategy and probably some others are in a race to try to get as many as Nakamoto. So just make sure that you continue to keep posted with us here on YouTube, as well as on X and on Instagram. We post there nearly every day. Thank you so much for watching. We hope you have a great week. In the meantime, take care, and we look forward to linking up with you soon on the Networkchain.